Hi there, welcome to another one of my classic reviews. I pick one of my all-time favourite movies, give it a rewatch and then come review it. And in this video I'm going to be talking about The General. So The General is from 1926 and it's one of the all-time classic silent comedies, and for very good reason. It really is a film that holds up to this day. It's simple, it's smooth, it's funny, and it's pretty much just a really nice rollercoaster, entertaining little movie. It wasn't exactly a groundbreaking movie at the time, it's a pretty standard film that you get from this era, but I have to say I really do like it. So it's written, directed and starring Buster Keaton, who's kind of known as one of the giants of silent comedy, the other mainly being Charlie Chaplin. And I think Buster Keaton is one of those people who really has a really brilliant sense of comedy. One of the things I really like about Buster Keaton's work is that he knows how to get a gag from every single moment in his films. He makes comedies, but he doesn't make comedies which are reliant on plot. He makes comedies which are reliant on jokes. In fact, every single section of Buster Keaton comedy basically is made for the joke. The fact there's a love story which is always kind of just he fancies somebody and he wins their heart through a bunch of misadventures is kind of standard. And The General is not exactly a revolutionary movie by his, but I think it's by far his most effective film. It's his film which has the most jokes and the most skill put into it. So to begin with, the first thing I think that makes The General such a classic is just the quantity of jokes. So throughout the 75-minute runtime, there's a joke pretty much every few seconds. It's a film where the jokes are plentiful. And the thing that really makes Buster Keaton's comedy really work is that the jokes always flow from one to the other really, really naturally. If Buster Keaton does a stunt or a pratfall that's funny, it leads into another stunt or pratfall that's funny. He's somebody who builds his jokes up. In fact, I think what makes The General such an effective film is that the jokes constantly build. Each stunt leads to another stunt which leads to another stunt. And his movies have these big comedic set pieces, but in between those big set pieces, he has small jokes, and plenty of jokes that go unnoticed, and plenty of jokes that are just minor. He uses them to kind of build up to the bigger moments. So the laughs are always constant, and they increase in size till he gets to a big moment. I also think that one of the things that really makes him really interesting is that he gets a joke out of everything. Buster Keaton gets a joke out of just how he sits down, out of just how he walks. He can do it in an odd and weird way. His physicality is what allows him to be so funny. In fact, Buster Keaton's comedy is essentially physical. It's all about how he moves. It's all about his very carefully choreographed clumsiness. It's about the way he jumps and about the way he walks and about the way he does stuff and his expressionistic movement and the way that everything is over the top. And Buster Keaton always plays a very likeable character. His character in The General is very likeable, he's very simple, and there's nothing complex here, and that's kind of the crux of it. This is just a movie which is just full of good jokes that all just bounce off one another constantly. The premise of The General is basically just set during the Civil War, where one side steals a train and Buster Keaton uses his train to chase them, and then eventually he gets chased back again. And the whole movie is essentially a chase movie. In fact, the majority of the film consists of two main chases between trains, and it is a movie which basically focuses itself just on the train, just on the tracks. The story barely ever moves away from the train or the tracks, and the film is basically just stuck in that one place. Although it's quite an expansive location piece in that it travels all across a lot of locations, the story never leaves the train. And I think what's really important is that Buster Keaton manages to get every single possible joke he really can out of there being a train. He uses the same jokes over and over again, and he understands how to repeat jokes, because if you use a joke that's funny, you may as well repeat it until the repetition itself becomes the joke, and then you have to stop it before the repetition becomes boring. And I think there's a few things here that he repeats over and over again because, as I say, he's limited because there's only solid jokes you can make about a train, but he always manages to cut it off at the right moment, so the jokes last as long as they need to last. The story is simple, the romance is simple and sweet, the whole plot is just kind of simplistic. It's very much just chases, and very much just good guys, bad guys, although historical context certainly makes you question the good guy, bad guys dynamic of this film. But you're meant to not think about it like that. It's meant to just be Keaton's a good guy, the other people are the bad guys. The technical aspects of The General are fantastic for the era. It's a really smooth movie. It's one of those movies where the editing is really, really fluid, where the chase sequences are actually quite suspenseful, even if they are also comedic. There's some really big stunts, and what's really impressive about the bigger moments, the really large scale battle sequences and large scale disasters and large scale moments, is that actually the large scale moments are often genuine. Like they didn't use effects. Like they actually did do loads of damage to property and do loads of damage to things. And that's one of the things that always make Buster Keaton's movies really, really fun. Like Charlie Chaplin's movies, to contrast, are very much about their jokes, but Keaton's comedies are far more dangerous. Keaton put himself at far more risk far more often in his movies, and his stunts are actually really, really dangerous. And I think it's really impressive to just watch, just to see how dangerous he was. There's so many moments where trains are moving and he's doing these ridiculous pratfalls, these ridiculous stunts, and the film is entirely committed to that sort of style. It's also just in general just really funny. That's the key thing here, is that The General isn't revolutionary. I don't have much to say about it as a movie, but I have to just say It's one of those films which, just as a pioneer of early cinema, it's interesting to see how cinema progressed to this point, to see how they got to a point where they could tell a simple story and they could mine it for laughs. It uses what silent comedy provides, which is physicality, and which is the fact that it has to be implied. It doesn't need to be complex, it's just to get jokes out of it, and the jokes are all physical. One other thing that's interesting about Buster Keaton is Buster Keaton didn't like to use intertitles that often. There's an entire section of this movie, especially during the chase sequences, where there's no dialogue, where it is just music and there's nothing, where it cuts away to words on screen. And when they are used, basically at the beginning and at the end, and are kind of in the middle, they are basically just used to either move the plot forward or occasionally, quite wittily, to contrast with the images on screen, which is something that Keaton does really, really well, and something that I think Keaton does better than some of the other silent comics. I think Keaton really understands how to minimise the use of intertitles in his movies, and the jokes flow, the jokes are natural, the joke just seamlessly progress from one to the other. It's not a movie which is revolutionary, but I'm struggling to name many silent movies that are more entertaining than this. This is simple, it's a classic, it's entertaining, it's funny, and it's always a movie that I can just watch. It's fun and simple, doesn't really put a foot wrong. The General is just an obvious classic. Have you seen The General? I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have, so leave me a comment and leave a like if you like this video. You can subscribe for watch more of my reviews, and if you want to keep up with what films I'm watching, you can follow me on Letterboxd or on Twitter, and thank you for watching.